Potential Not Pathology, embracing creative and resourceful approaches to psychotherapy with author and therapist Dr. Paul J. Leslie.
Welcome to Potential Not Pathology, where we offer information and inspiration for mental health therapists who are interested in learning and applying unique therapeutic techniques and concepts into their work. With a focus on the potential each client brings to his or her therapy session, this program examines ideas and tools which can assist your clients on their journey toward healing. I'm Paul J. Leslie. I'm glad you're with me today. Today is a nice conversation I get to share with you that I had with a good friend of mine, Tara Dickherber. Tara and I met a little while back at a training seminar that both of us presented at, and we hit it off, and she has some really good ideas and some really fantastic energy. Tara is an author and a licensed professional counselor in Missouri. She specializes in the treatment of trauma. She's the author of the book, Laughter, the Best Medicine, How Humor Can Help Your Clients and Alleviate Burnout. I highly recommend this book. At the time of the interview, I hadn't read it, but I definitely have now, and I recommend it to everybody. In this interview, she discussed her own journey to become a therapist, the importance of using humor in therapy, which is something that I wholeheartedly agree with. When we use humor, we can often aid in the treatment of many of the issues we're presented with, but primarily we discuss the treatment of trauma, which Tara is an expert in, and in the use of humor. We also discuss the importance of improvisation in a session. She's not one to stick to a script. She's not one to follow a set pattern. She interacts with her clients in really in a live, spontaneous fashion, which is what I think makes her such a great therapist. She also discusses her 3-hour sessions. She has a 3-hour session with people, and a lot of times she's done after those 3 hours. So it's a fun interview. I get to tease her a lot. She's a good sport, and I'm really happy to share this interview with you. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, Tara Dickherber, welcome to Potential Not Pathology.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm delighted to have you here. First thing I always like to do is to ask, how did you come to choose this really interesting and underpaid profession?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I was thinking that the other day. I'll try to make this as short as possible. I actually spent most of my childhood wanting to be a veterinarian, and then when my horse got tangled up in a barbed wire fence and I went into, was probably hyperventilating for a really long time, our horse vet came up to me, who I loved, and was like, yeah, don't go into this field. I was like, okay. I was probably like 11 at the time. So then I thought I was going to become a famous fashion designer, and I actually went out of the country and went to a fashion design school and was like, holy cow, the competition in this field is ridiculous, and it's not just competition, it's backstabbing, brutal. I'm like, not going to do that, and ended up actually at a really small school here in Missouri called William Woods University, and was majoring in horses because that's like my number one first passion in life ever.
They have a degree called horses?
It's called equestrian science, yes. Okay,
for a second I thought that would be the degree I'd want.
Well,
I have a bachelor in horses. I mean, that's so cool.
Yeah, I do have a bachelor's degree in horses. I kind of wish I'd gone to like University of Hawaii and gotten a bachelor's degree in surfing. I don't know what you'd do with that, but so while I was there majoring in horses, we had to take, I think it was like a humanities class, which psychology fell into that. And so I was like, well, I'll take a psychology class. That sounds interesting. And in the midst of taking that class, I was like, wait, you mean there's like some stuff out there that'll explain humans to me? Because I understand horses, I understand dogs. They totally make sense to me, but humans didn't. And so I pulled a second degree out of my tushy. And so I have a degree in psychology, and then my like the head of the psychology department at William Woods was like, well, you have to get a master's degree at least in this field. And I was like, what? Like, I thought I got a bachelor's degree and I made six figures. That's not what happened. So, from there, it's like, go get my counseling degree, get my license, and work in this field.
So all due to not wanting to be a veterinarian.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's logically, I was thinking that. I said, the other day, now that I'm not a veterinarian, I should go ahead and become a psychologist or a psychotherapist. But, okay, well, that's cool. Let me ask you, do you still have an affinity for horses?
I do. In fact, when I get done with this interview, that's where I'm heading, is the barn to go get stinky and dirty, and that's my therapy, is being at the barn. So, and I still, like, when I try to be there when the vet's going to be there, because I follow him around, and like, he's like, why aren't you a vet? I'm like, you guys deal with a lot of blood.
That's true. That's true. And a lot of, actually, I think a lot of the veterinarians have told me, the ones that I know, who's like, I wish I could refer some of my clients to you. I said, well, I don't work with animals. I said, no, the owners. They're the ones who really need the help. And I can get that. I can get that. Well, after kind of coming to the field of therapy that way, do you find that your experience, being around animals and interacting with animals has benefited you in the therapy room?
Yes, and hopefully I don't offend people by this, but there's a lot of stuff that we do as humans that's just completely like this innate response to stuff that is very similar to animals.
Yes.
And people come in and they're like, I don't know why I did this and this. And it's like, well, your emotional mind took over. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, okay, well, let's talk about that,
Yeah. Now, I don't want to go too far into talking about horses and all, but I've done a little bit of work with equestrian therapy with a colleague of mine, and I was really impressed with how effective it can be, particularly with a lot of children. She probably worked with children who had anxiety issues and ADHD and all those kind of things. And I noticed that there is that behavioral component that when you're on this, 1,000-pound or more animal, that he or she reacts to your emotional state, you as the rider. And it becomes this interactive process. And so the horse calms down when I calm down, and when the horse gets upset, I'll get upset, and those kind of things. Have you kind of seen that as well?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, here and there when I give riding lessons, like one of the very first things I teach my students is you have to breathe. As the rider, when you stop breathing, your horse stops breathing, you start to panic, they start to panic, and then chaos ensues. And so they're people that aren't around horses don't really give horses the kind of respect that I think they deserve, because you got a 1,000-pound animal, they can feel a tiny little fly on their butt. Yeah. Like, therefore they can feel whatever you're feeling. They can sense it. I've told people I have the horse that I currently own. He's very old, but when I was pregnant with my daughter, who will be 9 this year, for the first 3 months, I didn't know I was pregnant for quite a while. And for the first 3 months of my pregnancy, my horse didn't want anything to do with me. He didn't want food from me. He didn't want hay from me. He didn't want treats. He wouldn't let me catch him. And I tell people, I think he's the first one that knew I was pregnant. Yeah. So.
It's very intuitive, that's for sure. And speaking of intuitive, that intuition that you've kind of fostered working with horses, how has that served you as a therapist?
Once I was given like the okay in my process of, being a counselor, that it's okay to listen to my gut instinct and my intuition, I probably rely on it about 80 to 90%. And maybe even more than that. It's people will ask me, well, you specialize in working with survivors of trauma. What do you do? How do you know what to do if this person comes in with this? And I'm like, I don't know how to answer you until that person's sitting in front of me. Like, I see them, I start talking to them, and then something just takes over and I'll say something and they're like, how did you know that butterflies are my favorite thing ever? I don't know. My gut told me to say that.
Yeah. How did you find the courage to, as I think you just said something, to get the okay to do that?
It really was my training with Dr. John Connolly, who developed rapid resolution therapy. That I was certified in rapid resolution therapy for many years, and I can't even tell you the moment that there wasn't just a moment where he was like, just listen to your gut instinct. It was in training with him. I started watching him and realizing he was just following that gut instinct of his, and sometimes just literally playing to try to, I'm going to play with this, I'm going to play with this, and ooh, that finally helped. So that I'm going to put in my pocket and use for later, And it was like when I finally went, okay, wait a second. I can go into my sessions and I can play and I can make mistakes and I can shift and adjust and make things better for my clients. And I was like, all right, I can do this for the rest of my life. I can now stay in this field.
Yeah. Do you think the creativity that you obviously have, since you were, even considering becoming a fashion designer, gets to play out in the therapy room?
Absolutely. Like I don't know that I would describe myself as a natural born storyteller, but I'm by far, for sure, a storyteller. And I'll have other therapists ask me, well, how do you work with this? And I'll tell them the story that I told a client. And they're like, where did you come up with that story? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it fit their specific life and it just started coming out of me. And so again, I've just saved that story in my back pocket. And I think even for my clients, it's fun for them to have sessions that aren't me sitting there nodding my head going, tell me more about that. Well, how did that make you feel? It's because my sessions, I like them to be really interactive and high energy and fun. So,
yeah, that's one thing I've picked up, the time you and I work together, is how much energy that you bring to your sessions. And certainly some of that, I'm sure, is a natural result of your personality. But how do you keep that level of energy, through, oh, gosh, is this the sixth client today? Oh, actually, it's the eighth or whatever. And how do you keep your energy up and openness to this, what I'm going to call right-brained, unconscious material that just comes to you?
Well, there's a couple of different answers to that. One, like the more left brain therapy, the I guess would be more the cognitive behavioral type stuff, is absolutely draining for me. I tried to be that therapist for years, and it was, and CBT, it can do wonders for people, and people who are good with it, like, bless you, thank you for being there, because there's clients that need it, and I can't do it. Two, I don't have a schedule that runs like a lot of therapists. I don't see like 8 people in a day. I pretty much just do trauma, and my sessions are 3 hours long, and I see them like 1 to 3 times, and then I hand them over to the cognitive behavioral therapist or whatever, or some people don't even want therapy after that. So I don't have, I used to have those days where it was like 8 to 12 clients a day. It's, again, I hope people don't misperceive this, but there's something for me about having an audience in front of me. I was the vice president of our drama club in high school, if that helps people understand anything.
I'm so totally shocked by that. I don't, okay.
So I go in, if I have a new client, I'm thinking about it as I'm driving in there, but as soon as they sit down, something shifts in me, and it's like I hear their story, they tell me, what they're wanting to get better or what they're sick of, and then that shift happens, and I'm on the stage doing my thing.
Right, yeah. So I read an article, I think it was Bradford Keeney, who wrote about that he felt the field of, I think he was talking specifically family therapy, but I will put all psychotherapies, needs to be moved out of the social sciences building and into the performing arts center. Because to be truly effective, one has to have this flexibility to respond to however the person is responding, and the improvisational nature, it doesn't quite lend itself to, the multivariate statistical results that some other type of therapies might. Just this kind of, okay, I'm just going to get in there and wing it and trust my unconscious mind. It's kind of hard to measure that. And for a lot of people, I think it's very scary. So what would you tell a person who is kind of like, oh, I've been doing the traditional therapies for a while. I want to do more what you do, Tara. So what's the first step to just learning to let go and do it?
Hire a drama coach.
No, I think that's great advice.
And then that's actually advice straight from Dr. Cotterly. People they come into his trainings and they want these scripts, and he's like, no. You need to go hire an acting coach or a drama coach and go to improv. And he's like, it's not that. Yes. In fact, I actually just shared on social media, because I'm also a social media junkie, like this past week, that Second City, where improv is, they're doing classes on improv to help people with autism and anxiety. And I'm like, brilliant.
Absolutely.
That's so wonderful. And my other advice is figure out what you need to get taken care of so that it's okay to make mistakes. Because I make mistakes all the time, and I'm very honest with my clients. I'm like, you know what? I don't like that word. I don't like that statement that I just said. Give me a second. Let me think about that. And they're like, oh, okay. And you can see it when you miss a tune with a client. You totally see it. And I'll look at them and go, that didn't hit you very well, did it? And they're like, no, I didn't. I don't. And, it might have been just one little word that I used. My really good friend Kelly that I share office space with, she used the word loyalty with me in regards to our friendship. We've been friends for 20 years. Bless her heart that she's put up with me. And I got off the phone with her and I was like, wow, that conversation makes me really uncomfortable. And I had to figure out what it was. And it was the word loyalty. And I had some unresolved junk about that word. And so later on in the day, I called her and she's like, oh, honey, this is what I think loyalty is. And I'm like, oh, I like your definition better. I'm just going to go with that.
Yeah. Well, that's really the whole thing with language, too, because if we don't have the ability to be flexible and to improvise with our language, the client oftentimes, I think, is stuck because of their language, because of the language they're using to describe how they feel, their situation. And if we don't have the flexibility to kind of examine our own language and flow, hey, is this working for you, and flow from place to place. I had a client a couple of weeks back who kept going into as a child of an alcoholic. I mean, it was like every other, session, as a child of an alcoholic. And, at one point I wanted to know, why do these child of alcoholics get all the support groups? Not once have I seen child of plumbers support groups, child of engineer support groups, or child of school teachers. But yet that was her thing. She's so inflexible that in her thought, and not meant as a criticism, but it is, to kind of, do you have the flexibility to describe yourself as something other than a child of an alcoholic? And how do you encourage your clients to let go and become more free?
I catch that kind of stuff, and I wouldn't actually word it as a criticism of my client. I'd just be like, hey, let's look at how you're talking about yourself here, and how about we flip it and look at it this way? And again, it's one of those, when they're sitting in front of me, I'll come up with some crazy story that afterwards I'm like, where did that come from?
Right. Yeah.
But I had a client one time, he's actually moved. I had worked with him for 4 years. And at this point, and he called me. I was in a session. He called me and left a message and was in a panic. And I called him back, and he's a Presbyterian minister, and he was working with 2 different churches. And one was open-minded, younger congregation. The other one was very closed-minded, older congregation. These are his words, that church was dying because they wouldn't open up to anybody joining their church. And they were he's literally, they're all going to die eventually. And they fired him. And he had been struggling for years with how, because he's very outside of the box for any minister. And, which I was just amazed with, like, can you please be my client forever so that I can just like watch you live your life? And so he calls me out. I call him and he's like, I got fired and oh my gosh. And da, da, da. And he was like, and I don't even remember the words. And I was like, letting him kind of vent for a while I was on the phone. And I said, okay, are you ready for me to talk? And he's like, yeah. I said, is it really you getting fired, or was it a professional difference of opinion that couldn't be, fixed? And that's probably not exactly what I said. And he went, oh, that's exactly what it is. And I'm like, yeah, like, you've been struggling with this church for years. Like, hello to freedom. You don't have to fight with them anymore. And he was like, okay, thanks. All right, talk to you later.
Yeah.
There's magic in flipping their perception of things. I don't know if I could sit down and like write a book on how to do that for somebody. It's like, I don't know, come in and sit in sessions with me, watch me. I don't.
Well, I think that's a common thing. A lot of the greats of our field, from the 60s and 70s, you notice a lot of their books were transcripts, big chunk of it. And some of them even had trouble commenting on their own, session transcripts because it was the same kind of thing. Well, I don't know. It just, kind of reminded me of when somebody approached Sinatra after a show. Hey, Frank, how'd you hit that high C? He said, I just opened my mouth and out it came. And that's about as much, deep thought as they put into it. It just, there it is. And, speaking of, you said writing a book. You have a book that hopefully will be out soon. I wanted to ask you about it. It kind of segues into the idea of language, and it's about humor. And I wonder if you could tell me about the book and also your approach to humor in the therapy room, particularly in the tricky area of trauma.
Well, I'm going to have to correct you here, Mr. Paul. My book is actually already out. It is. It's up on Amazon.
Goodness.
I finally got this thing done.
When did that come out?
Probably around the summer last year. But I don't even remember.
Are
like, that's
serious?
sad. I don't remember.
Okay, we're not friends anymore. You're not going to tell me this stuff. We're not friends anymore. Well, tell me about this book that's been out apparently for 15 years.
It's called Laughter, the Best Medicine, How Humor Can Help Your Clients and Alleviate Burnout. I tell people it's a bathroom book because it's really short. It's quick and simple. Mostly because I thought I had written a lot, and then when I got done, it was like really short, and I was like, I need to be done with this. I need to move on to other projects. So it's basically about bringing humor into your sessions. And so I kind of go into a little bit of why to bring in humor, which the why of it is it's actually beautiful to do with people who've survived trauma. Their emotional minds get kind of, part of it will get stuck in this, whether it's anxiety or sadness or anger or grief or whatever. And I'm a horrible person. I cannot tell you who quoted this, but I read somewhere it was like, two opposing emotions cannot happen at the exact same time over a situation. So you, like, physically, neurologically cannot be laughing and sad at the exact same time about something that happened to you when you were 5. So if I can find a way to get somebody find something funny or turn it into a funny thing about something that happened to them and have them laughing while they're thinking about what happened to them, their emotional mind goes, well, I don't know why we're sad about that anymore. That's dumb. And people literally say that to me. They're like, this is so weird. Why am I laughing about, being abused when I was 5? I'm like, well, you've been mad about it for 30 years. Try to be mad about it. And they're like, I can't. I'm like, right, yay, win. So, there's science behind it. Humor is healing. And I tell people humor it's much better than a pill. Like, the side effects are your stomach hurts, which means you've actually got an abdominal workout. And if you've ridden horses your entire life and you've given birth to children, you might pee in your pants. So that's the only bad side effect to it.
Well, that's that's fair enough. Well, how do you know when to? And again, I'm asking the kind of question that I often resent being asked. How do you know when to do that? When to be funny?
It is very much a gut instinct thing. But so I have these 3-hour sessions for trauma, and this is kind of how it breaks down. Like the first hour is almost always them telling me their story. What happened? What's been going on since then? What are they noticing? What's the emotional stuff that's driving them crazy, or the behavioral stuff? That's not the time for me to be funny. We're establishing rapport and connecting at that point. Usually the second hour of my session is me educating them on the neuroscience of their emotional mind in a way that both of us can understand, because I love neuroscience, but neuroscience is pretty complicated, and even I sometimes am like, really, just give me a pop-up book version of this. Yeah. And so then the last part of it, at this point, they're like, wow, she really knows what she's talking about. Like she really understands anxiety, and she really understands what anger has been like for me. That last hour, and people can do, and I know people do this trauma work in, hourly, weekly sessions, and I'm pretty sure they're probably doing the same exact thing. That last hour is me in there basically using conversational hypnosis with storytelling and different, languaging things differently, and getting them. There is an art to this kind of stuff, because the storytelling that has to be done can't be direct stories related to what they've went through. So if I have like a survivor of sexual violence sitting in front of me, I don't want to tell stories that relate to sexual violence. I actually want to tell stories, shall we say, related to veterans of war. And so it's not close enough for them to get upset about what they went through, but it's close enough for their subconscious mind to go, wait a second, that kind of applies to what we went through. And then it begins to change. And there's also the science behind it with, I'm going to butcher this word, but the memory reconciliation stuff, where you open up the memory, you get that emotional response to that memory, and you got to wait 10 minutes to 5 hours to change it. So I have to have at least 10 minutes that they tell me their story before I start trying to make it better. And so that's why I love my 3-hour sessions. It's like they tell me their story, and in about an hour and a half, which falls into that memory reconciliation thing where you got to do it between 10 minutes and 5 hours, I can get in there. It's like it opens up that part of the mind enough that I can help it get better. But if I wait too long, then it closes itself back up, and I got to get it opened again. That was a very long answer.
No, that's great. That's great. Now, when you within your sessions, you said you don't use much humor in the first hour, but I'm kind of thinking, though, that it also depends on the person. That if you feel some kind of click with them, that it's okay to do that's obviously not always set in stone.
Absolutely. And that's even, I thought I was done with my book at one point, and I was actually watching another friend of mine who was doing a video podcast thing, and I went, I have to do a chapter of when to not be funny, because sometimes you're gonna completely blow the connection you have with your client. But for sure, people come in and it's because sarcasm is probably my second language. So they come in and I can just tell they're sarcastic or they're snarky or, they're witty, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Now, you mentioned that, when to do funny. I also think, too, that some people can be wonderful therapists and not be funny because they don't know how to be funny, because the ability to, on the spot, let humor flow creatively, I think that's kind of an innate for some people. I mean, we can learn things, and certainly we talk about improv, but if you're just not a funny person, you might be best serving your client by not being funny. But then if you have this wonderful resource called humor, I think it's a crime not to use it. But I think a lot of people are very unsure that it's okay to be funny. It's okay to use humor. and they may want an algorithm. Say, okay, when do I need to do this? Is it about 26 minutes and a half? I didn't want to jump into 27. So if somebody is able to use humor, you said it was kind of in your gut. How do you approach the use of humor? Is it just kind of you're keeping an open mind to whatever happens and just kind of going with it, or do you try to tailor it to the person? Or
yes to all of those. I mean, I agree. I don't think I could ever teach somebody to be funny who doesn't actually have a funny bone. But the same is true with your client sitting in front of you. There are some clients walk in who aren't funny, and because I will test the waters. Maybe people are going to call me manipulative, but I'll kind of throw a joke out there, and depending on how flat it falls, I'm like, oh crap. And at the I don't know how people take this, but it's like IT guys and engineers. They're flat. Okay, I've had IT women. They're funny. I enjoy them, but it also is kind of taking into account my clients. So where I'm located in St. Charles, Missouri, is like Catholic central. And so some people are kind of Catholic light, and some people are hardcore conservative Catholics. And I can be dirty gutter humor if it's going to be work, and so I have to kind of adjust it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like playing with a improvisational musical group. Is they may start, okay, this is going to be in the key of E, but nobody really knows what's going to be played, and you're going, okay, well, let's try this, and if it's just not working, move on to something else. Is that kind of how you approach your humor?
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. How much do you think personality-wise do you bring to your session? Are you, the word we like to use in our field at the being authentic? How authentic do you feel that you are when you're interacting with your clients?
I'm probably more authentic than a lot of therapists are comfortable with. I mean, I will openly admit to my clients that I've had rapid resolution therapy. I've been a client of it. I don't go into why I went to, see Dr. Connolly personally, but I will admit, say I did have, a 3-hour session. These are the results that I've seen from it. So I'm pretty authentic. I have this thing about me. I can't stand clients thinking that I live this perfect little life. My life isn't perfect. Right. I may not be dealing with an alcoholic husband or something, but my life isn't perfect. I have crappy days. I have days that it's just like really kind of just put the blanket over my head. I'm human. And again, I think that also plays out in the fact that I will hit the wrong chord in a session and go, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Can we rewind a little bit here? And they always go, oh, okay, sure. Mm-hmm. I have yet to have one go, no, continue with that crappy thing that you just said.
There's always be that chance. You could have that one.
Next week, it's probably going to happen.
Yeah. Well, if you're approaching as authentically as you can your sessions, you're being as spontaneous as you can, where does technique and theory fit in for you?
Oh, that's a great question. Thanks for finally giving me one that makes me ponder. Make this look like I don't know what I'm talking about.
That was my whole goal. I've been waiting for about 30 minutes. I said, I'm going to show this bitch up. Finally, on a public forum, I'm going to get her. And so I did. Thank you. Interview is over.
Well, I guess part of my catch is the whole idea of theory. I always love that question. What's your theoretical background? I don't know.
Yeah.
Make up BS. And if they like it, I go with it.
Yes.
I guess my answer to that is I've been in this field for 20 years, and I've probably spent a good 10 to 15 years in there, either full-time or part-time, working with chronically mentally ill adults. So there is a lot of knowledge in the back of my head experience where I'm sitting there, like at the same time where I'm telling silly stories, that I'm also like clinically, for lack of a better word, analyzing, how much of this is trauma? Is there possibly bipolar going on back there? Like what else is going on?
Right.
So they just, like if that's a left brain and a right brain, I think they're working at the same time. It's just part of it might be louder than the other part. I don't know if that's a really good answer to your question, though.
No, I think so. I think so, because we do have to, even though I'm a big proponent of, moving away from pathology and the medical model, at the same time having, a grounding in techniques. I think it's important, and having a theory, but also knowing, to discard a theory. It's, and that's difficult for some people. It's a hat a lot of people wear, and when they go into the therapy room, they feel if they don't have their hat on, they can't be effective. And then you have I think the other side is people who try to wear so many hats, and they say, well, I'm an eclectic therapist, and they, well, that wasn't working. Let's move on to technique number 2. Well, that's not working. Let's move on to theory number 3. But then that they're just in the same bind as the person with the one theory, as opposed to having that natural flow of potential, within the session. So yeah, I totally get that, having both. I had someone ask me the other day, a new client, and said, well, what type of therapy do you do? And usually these people are pretty well read. They're what I call the left brain consumers. So I told her, so what kind of therapy do you do? I said, effective.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, and, at that point, she said, oh, okay, and went on. If she hadn't have said okay, I might have even sent her to somebody else, because some people feel like they already have a checklist in their mind. Oh, I came for dialectic behavior therapy, which is great. Okay, well, that's not me. I might be doing some elements of it, but so if they have their heart and mind set on this is the only thing that can help me, well, let's let that placebo run its course and get you to somebody who can help you. Have you gotten the client who wants to be so involved in the therapy that they're second guessing themselves and you just have to, hey, just listen, let it go, just relax?
Yes, and I've had it in a couple of different ways. I've had the clients who are lifelong consumers of counseling, and again, this would be after like rapport connection has been established, and they're said whatever I said, and then they start off on all this psychobabble kind of stuff. I've said to a few of them, okay, we need to stop, and I need to rewire all of the stuff that your other therapist did. Like, because I'm not that therapist. Well, I had a client one time who she needed glasses to see, like I do. And she had them on. I didn't think anything of it because she needs glasses to see. They weren't sunglasses. And she was like, oh, wait a second, I need to take these off. And I'm like, why do you need to take them off? She goes, well, my other therapist told me that I was hiding behind my glasses. I said, wait.
Wow.
Those are like for you to see, right? And she's like, yeah. I said, then how are you hiding behind them? Put those back on. And she was like, okay. I'm like, can you see me better now? And she's like, yeah. I said, I look pretty good today, so I would like you to see me fully and completely. I've also had a few, and this has every single time been a male. I'm sorry, Paul. But the few times that they were trying to be better counselor than I was, like one particular gentleman had actually trained with Dr. Connolly for a little bit. And I will paraphrase this from what I actually said in my office. And I basically looked at this gentleman and said, I have trained in this longer than you have, and I know a lot more than you do about this type of hypnotherapy. So you either be quiet and sit down and you either be quiet and let me do my job that you called me and begged me for a session for and are paying me for, or you can get out and save your money. And I literally got up, and he was like, wait. And I'm like, so are you going to let me do my job, or are you going to do my job for me? And I don't think anybody had ever stood up to this guy, ever. And he was like, okay. I'm like, you're paying me the big bucks. I don't take insurance. You're like, I know what you're paying me, so let me be the expert here.
Yeah, good for you. I probably would have told him, if you don't show up, I'm going to hypnotically install impedance. So let me know that.
I'm going to put that in my back pocket.
It's scarier when a woman says it, though. Oh, man. Well, speaking of those kind of clients, how do you generally deal with this idea of a resistant client? I don't like that idea. I think Erickson said that there's really no resistant clients, just inflexible therapists. But we do sometimes meet clients who challenge us, and and using humor and other things can be helpful. But how do you generally deal with this concept of resistance?
I think for 99% of the time, resistance is really just conflict. Like, they're unsure if it's okay to be okay. And so it's about me helping them understand the benefits of being okay. And if anybody ever picks up my little bathroom book and they read it, I talk about it's actually the art of being manipulative. And I think of it like Star Wars. Everybody's manipulative. There's the Jedi Knights and there's the Sith Lords. I like to pretend that I'm a Jedi Knight. I'm doing this to help them see this so that they can get better. Now, there's probably going to be some therapist out there who's like, what a horrible therapist she is. Come on, let's just call it what it is. Everybody can be manipulative.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I don't like to create confrontation, but I'm comfortable with it. I actually did a blog post a while ago that was one of my friends was like, you really like conflict, and I don't know how you do that. I can't do it. And it stuck with me, and I'm like, I don't like conflict, because I think people who like conflict intentionally create it. And so I just pondered it, and I was like, no. It's not that I like it. It's that I dislike the discomfort of things not being confronted more than the confrontation. I'd rather confront the situation and get it handled than be uncomfortable and avoid it. And so if somebody's being in a conflict, I'll call them out. Now, I still think there's that 1% out there. I offer consultations where you can come in and meet me face-to-face for about 45 minutes and decide whether or not you want to, pay money to see me for 3 hours. And I had it's actually happened twice that I've turned people away. The one I turned away, he literally came in for his consult. He was high on heroin, pot, and drunk. No, we're not going to work together.
Well, you're saying that like it's a bad thing.
Maybe that would make my sessions more fun. But the second guy literally sat in front of me and said, I'm an angry guy. When people piss me off, I like to make their life miserable. And I was like, I don't even want to confront it. Like, I don't know how to fix that conflict. And he's like 23. His mom came with him, and I asked her to leave. I found a moment to get her to walk out the door. And I was like, we ain't working together. I'm like, it ain't going to happen. So I guess I was kind of confrontational. But I was like, you don't want to get better. And he's like, nope. I'm like, then I ain't doing this. I'm not taking your mom's money. Don't waste my time. And he was like, okay. I'm like, all right, bye. So if I'm going to use resistant with anybody, it was that guy. Like, he's completely resistant. He doesn't see what's going wrong in his life that could be better. Maybe he will when he's like 45. Right. I don't know. I felt bad for his mom. She probably should have made an appointment with me because she's just desperate for him to get better.
Right. So when you're getting in those kind of situations, I mean, I also think too, knowing that there are some people that we're not the best fit for is an intuitive kind of thing, because we naturally, I think most of us, we think we're here to help everyone and to save everyone, and having that, I really don't think I'm the best therapist for you, while at the same time holding on to our ego strength of going, well, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad therapist. Do you find that sometimes you have to struggle with that?
No. Personally, professionally, I don't struggle with that. What I struggle with is other therapists I know have these much more financially fiscal practices, because they'll see anybody and everybody, and even clients that they're, are sick of, and they'll see them for years, where I'm like, I answer my own phone. I do all of my own stuff. And so even on the phone, there are times I'm like, I don't really think I'm what you need. And sometimes it's just because they're calling me, somebody referred them, but they're really, again, my niche is trauma. It's not the everyday work sucks client. And I'm like, I don't think I'm what you need. And they're like, oh, but I'm enjoying talking to you. Yeah, but I'm not cheap. I don't take insurance. I can get you to people who you're going to enjoy working with and can help you with that. But I do struggle going, okay, I just like that financially that could have been help to my business. But then I look and I go, it would have been a complete drain emotionally, and I have to go home and be a mom and a wife, and it's whatever that is, balance. I don't know.
It's hard, because we do want to help everybody, but I think we do need to have that wisdom, like you seem to have, to know, it's not like community mental health. Well, sometimes, this is just who you're working with, whether you want to or not. So there's some positive things about, being one's own boss, having one's own practice, whether it's solo or in a group practice, to say, no, this is the area I work with. For example, I no longer work with children. It's just not my thing. I did it for about a year or two. Kids were great. The parents wanted to strangle. And, now, it's funny, though. I work with families. If the whole family's in the room, it's great. But I just can't handle the bring the one kid in and, make this kid suddenly what we want him to be. And so I'm fortunate. There are obviously people I can refer to who enjoy that and are good at it. I think it's a part of also wisdom as we age in our profession, but also that economic. Geez, are you kidding me? That would have been a nice little bit of money, but I find there's always enough.
Yeah, and you just got put on a pedestal that you do family therapy. Like, I don't work with kids. I don't do couples. I don't do family therapy. Like, I tried doing couples and family therapy. It was like a 5-ring circus for me. I'm like, nope, one person, one-on-one, that I can do.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. It's what's really cool is that somebody can find that term niche now. I don't know if I really like, but that's exactly what it is. Your niche is obviously in the field of trauma, working one-on-one with people, and that is very, very important, as well as family therapy, couples therapy, and that's what's great. There's enough for everybody. What do you like the most about working in the field of trauma, and second part is, how do you find ways to get the person you're working with to access new resources that maybe they had either forgotten or didn't realize?
What do I like most is seeing my clients get better. I audio record my 3-hour sessions as long as the clients are okay with that, and I have yet to have somebody not be okay with that. But sometimes I really wish I video recorded, because I have honestly seen people, like, their skin tone change color at the end of a trauma session. And it's... Yes. Please don't judge me. Everybody listen to this. It is an addictive high to watch my clients get better. And on the back end of that, it's also like, my clients then have this long-term connection with me that, like, 2 years later, I'll get an email from them going, oh my gosh, this thing just happened at a family gathering, and this is how I handled it, and I'm so proud of myself, and I know that's because of my sessions with you, and that you helped me get over what happened when I was little or whatever. And so I get these random emails that are just like, bless you for being part of my life, Tara. And I'm like, yay for you. Thank you for, treating my addiction. Yes, absolutely.
There's a healthy narcissism here. I can
totally
detect.
Grandiose. Yeah. On helping them access like new resources, that's sometimes that actually naturally happens in a session. Like, their mind has updated and rewired beyond this trauma. And all of a sudden they'll just start telling me like stories or tell me about somebody that they hadn't thought of in a long time. And they're like these positive, energized stories. And then they'll look at me and go, I hadn't thought about that in years. And I'm like, I know, because all that junk is cleared out and there's space for it now. and they it's like something opens up and they're, you know, like actual resources. They're open to other resources. I had a gentleman one time who had been really abused and neglected and ran away from home at like 15 or 16 and lived on the streets, and really streetwise guy, and was like in a legal issue over his child, and they wanted him to do parenting classes. And at the end, he was like, okay, I'm going to sign up for those parenting classes. He's like, it's okay for me to learn things. Like, they might actually be able to teach me something. And I was like, yes, because he wasn't going to get his child back if he didn't do these parenting classes. And I was like, yeah, see, you know, like, go for it. You know, if you have any questions, call me, and, you know, we'll do a little hourly session and discuss parenting. Not that, you know, I'm the queen of parenting, but I haven't written any parenting books and I don't plan on it. There's just something magical about that emotional junk from surviving trauma when it's healed and it's better, that the world opens up to them.
Right. Yeah. And being a witness to healing, it's just it's an amazing a moment. And I think anyone listening who, I mean, obviously to listen to this, you have to have some interest in our field or be a part of it. Like I say, it is addictive, and it's just humbling too when you see, you know, hey, I took part in this transformation. And that's our clients honor us, and I think it's they honor us by, you know, being open to working with us and doing, you know, this dance called therapy, which is a very strange dance because it sounds like the way you do it, the way I do it, other colleagues of ours, the pattern keeps changing, and to have the courage to hang in there with us is it's pretty brave.
Well, I think they're brave. The fact that they picked up the phone and said, I went through something horrifying and I need help. They're already the bravest person on the planet. Yes,
I agree. Totally agree. Well, how do people find out more about you, since obviously you now have a book out? I swear to God that book was coming out, like, I've been waiting on it. I didn't realize that it was already out. So it's on Amazon. Your book's on Amazon. But how do people get in touch with you? I know you also do trainings and you do supervision as well.
I am actually allowed to do licensure supervision in the state of Missouri. I was technically grandfathered in as an LPC. Okay. It was now you have to do like so many hours of training to do it, and so apparently I'm that old.
Right.
So people can go to my website, which is Tara, S as in Sam, Dickherber, LPC.com. They can email me, Tara at TaraLPC.com. No narcissism in there whatsoever. They can call me, 636-896-5686 is my office number. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I am a social media junkie. I actually do that on the side now for therapists. People pay me to actually sit on Facebook. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's you, and we have a mutual friend who you do that for, and she's very happy with the work you do. And I think for a lot of therapists who, particularly like you're, you know, running your own show, it's difficult sometimes, particularly if you're not very savvy in social media, to keep up with it. So having someone like you who's really good at it, has the time, and can do all these kind of things, and obviously shares the similar profession.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty cool. So I would definitely recommend anyone listening to look Tara up for that as well. Any last thoughts about your work or anything you'd like to put out there?
I would like to challenge anybody listening to this to go out and laugh today. Find something funny. I have failed in my day if I haven't laughed at something, and that's probably because both sides of my family are hysterical. But people, come to my house and they're like, "Your guys' family it's so fun." I'm like, "I know, and my daughter will be upset about something, and it's like I find a way to get her to laugh about it." I'm like, seriously, I'm sorry your knee hurts. Your skin will grow back. We're good. Let's move on. So go laugh, people.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice. The life is so absurd, and we hear so much absurdity in our work, and not laughing at the absurd, I think, is very limiting. Someone asked me my heroes and mentors in the field of therapy, along with people like Milton Erickson. I said, Groucho Marx. Because everything he said, it was absurd. And then the more you listen to him, you go, oh, he's not absurd. He's actually very rational. It's the world that's absurd. And when you see that, it kind of makes a shift, because it is. Well, as always, my dear, a pleasure talking with you. I appreciate you taking the time today. And I really just have seen you work. I appreciate what you're putting out there, and I know that your clients are very fortunate to have someone like you.
Thank you, and I'm very honored to be interviewed by you. I was like, Paul's going to interview me. Oh my gosh.
Well, I was hoping it was about time you said something nice about me, because my narcissism was getting a little.
Too much today.
Thank you. Well, thank you, my dear. Thanks for talking.
Thank you for listening to Potential Not Pathology with Dr. Paul J. Leslie. If you enjoyed the show, check out our website at potentialnotpathology.com, where you will find programs and articles showcasing unique and creative therapeutic applications.